Good afternoon, and welcome to Self-Directed Saturday with Quest Trust Company. I'm Nicole Bako, an IRA specialist, and I'll be your host today. We have Sarah Shellum helping us moderate, and our special guest today is Lance Pederson. And I'm really excited about this topic. Sponsors are from Mars, and investors are from Venus. Due diligence for passive investing. Before we get right into our topic, I'm going to share a few slides about who Quest Trust Company is and what we do. Oh, let me share my screen first. All right, there we go. All right, so today is our topic.
Uh,
Lance Peterson is our.
Sorry, Nicole, you're not
Nope.
sharing your screen yet.
Oh, sorry. Hang on. Little technical difficulties. Is it the right
There,
one?
there we go. You're good to go.
All right. Sorry about that, guys. All right. So there's our topic, our special guest, Lance Peterson. All right, let's get started, guys. So who is Quest and what do we do? So we happen to be the largest self-directed IRA custodian in Texas. We were started by two brothers, Nathan and Quincy Long, started by investors for investors. So they actually started the company as investors themselves and built the company around a client experience to make sure that you have the best experience in investing in alternative and private investments. We have 20,000 active investors all over the country, so we are allowed to do business in all 50 states. We have $2 billion under assets under administration, and we have $350 million in underacted cash. This is a great opportunity for borrowers and lenders to come together and in the form of promissory notes and passive investing. So great topic that we have that we'll get into today. A disclaimer, really important here to note that this presentation, like all of our presentations, is for education purposes only. We do not give any legal, tax, or investment advice. So please do your own due diligence in seeking professionals, your accountants, your attorneys, etc., before engaging in any investments. Self-directed IRA. What is it and why should you have one? So self-directed is simply a marketing term, meaning you're in the driver's seat and you get to tell us what you want to invest in. An IRA is an IRA is an IRA. So an IRA that's not self-directed is governed the exact same way by the IRS as ones here at Quest Trust Company. You just get to pick the private assets in a more alternative way. So some benefits would be diversification. So opposed to just being able to invest in the stock market, mutual funds, bonds, etc., you get to invest in things like real estate, promissory notes, and private entities. Tax savings. Our traditional IRA will allow for a tax-deferred savings when you only pay taxes at retirement. Our Roth IRA will have the potential of having a tax-free distributions at retirement. Make sure you contact an IRA specialist to learn more about those special accounts. Social investing, you actually get to kind of see the projects that you're working on come to fruition. And so you get to see a house being refurbished and sold, or making a loan to someone that might not be able to get a traditional loan from a bank. And of course, invest and note what you know best. So if you really know a lot about real estate or promissory notes or investing in small private companies or oil and gas, this is a place where you can come to invest in those platforms. We have 7 types of accounts at Quest Trust. They're broken down into 3 categories. We have our personal plans, our employer plans, and our specialty plans. I wish I had time to go into more detail about all of them today, but I don't. So make sure you contact an IRA specialist and see which one is appropriate for you. Typically, one or more would be great for you and your family. Investment choices. This is honestly just a short list of things you can invest in, like oil and gas isn't even on here. So real estate, private entities, promissory notes. Promissory notes would be more of your your passive investing, things we're going to talk about today. So make sure you, again, contact an IRA specialist, and we'd be happy to talk to you about what might be appropriate for you. But our investors and our clients do choose the investments themselves, do their own due diligence, and then contact us and tell us what they want to invest in. So tax deadlines are coming up, so make sure you get those contributions in. You can still get 2020 contributions in as well as 2021. So we added this chart in there to make sure you know which limits that you are capable of making. Yes, you can contribute to your 401k at work and an IRA. So contact an IRA specialist to see how this can work for you. Free endless education. So the seminar you are watching right now is free in addition to many others that we offer. Make sure that you're going to check out our YouTube channel. We're actually streaming live right now. This webinar will be accessible on our YouTube channel along with all the other videos that we have with our special guest speakers and other Quest education videos. We have a brand new revamped education center on our website that would be amazing to check out. We have our weekly webinars with other guest speakers and Quest specialists themselves, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Of course, Self-Directed Saturday, coming to you live every Saturday. And a really important special event, Virtual Networking Happy Hour. First and third Wednesday of the month, 6:30 p.m. Central. Come have a glass of wine with us. Because it's virtual, you can network with individuals all across the country and see what they're doing and see, get some ideas, connect with other investors. It's a really fun event. So come have a glass of wine or some beer with us, and we'd love to have you. So QuestCon Live is back, and the topic is private lending. So goes right in hand with what we're doing right now. So you see the ticket prices. Here is a discount code, 30% off with the code Nicole30. So if you go to our website, Sarah is going to put some links in the chat box for you of how to get the tickets, and you can put the discount code Nicole30 in there, and you'll get 30% off. Our April promotion, if you open an account in the month of April, your first transaction fee of $125 will be waived. This is huge. So the first asset that you purchase will be for free. Now the asset won't be free, but the transaction fee will be. So come on, open an account, existing customers, new account, $125 off. So great special. Make sure you contact an IRA specialist to see how this can work for you. So how do you contact an IRA specialist? We're actually super easy to get in touch with. We have our code there on the left. You can scan with or take a picture of with your cell phone. Chat with us live. If you've ever been to our website, a little box pops up on the right. Chat with us. These are not robots. These is actually real people. It's actually me personally on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Other people, of course, in the company are on there as well, but I'm on there on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Give us a call. I love our phone number, 855-FUN-IRAs. We actually do make this fun and exciting. And then, of course, email iraspecialist@questrust.com, or you can email me personally at nicole.baco@questtrust.com. All right, so now for the man and the topic of the hour, here is Lance Pederson. Let me stop sharing my screen. All right, Lance, we are very excited to have you. Thanks so much for being with us. And take it away, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Nicole. I appreciate it. All right. Hello, everyone. Happy Saturday. Happy weekend. So before we get started, just give a little bit of background on myself. So I am the founder and managing partner of Verivest. We're based in Portland, Oregon. We have clients all over the country. So we're fundamentally middle and back office administrators, and we have a partnership tax practice as well. So our clients are many of these deal sponsors that you may be looking to allocate capital from your self-directed IRA into these various investments. Hang on one second. Sorry about that. Clicked the wrong button. There we go. And so I got in this business in 2008, and I went to work for a commercial hard money lender. So the private lending we're kind of speaking of, that's how I got in. My background was more of technology and IT services. And so we had a couple investment funds, and those about $100 million each. And so in 2011, we decided to start an advisory practice helping other real estate entrepreneurs around the country to form investment funds, how to structure them, how to create alignment with their passive investors. And really out of that was born the need sort of to provide them with back office administration. So concepts like self-directed IRAs and those things can be pretty confusing for deal sponsors and for investors themselves. And so we realized that bringing sort of our accounting and all those sorts of things to bear was a value add to the industry. So we've really been serving this industry since then. And this has really morphed where Verivest now is, a big part of what we do. And we have a sponsor directory, and we do some sponsor due diligence as a service. So this is really where, this topic sort of comes from, is that I spend most of my days interfacing with these deal sponsors and trying to consult with them and help them understand how to more effectively capitalize their deal flow. And what I've learned over the years is that there's a pretty big disconnect from, what these active investors, how they view the world, and how people that are, looking to allocate capital into them see things, right? And it kind of reminds me of that book from the 80s, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, hence the title. So today I'm going to cover, how especially from the passive investor side of the equation, how can you navigate this to, when you identifying something that you're interested in investing in, but how do you go through the various steps to ensure that you've done the appropriate amount of due diligence, especially in this case with self-directed, right? As Nicole hit on there several times, right? It's up to you to decide what you want to invest in, right? And you want to make sure that you make, good decisions when you allocate that capital that you've worked, hard to accumulate. So I look at this as sort of, there's this dance that goes on. One side of the equation, you have these deal sponsors who, their primary thing is they like to execute their strategy, whether they're private lenders, originating loans, or whether they're guys that are buying, fix and flipping houses, or they're buying commercial real estate or apartment buildings, mobile home parks. They have some strategy that they are executing, and they enjoy doing that. They like negotiating. They like the chase. They like the, figuring out how to turn an asset around, to add value to it. But the thing that comes along with that is that they're going to, more than likely, if they're successful and good at what they do, they're going to need, other people's money. They're going to have to raise capital from other parties because their own personal balance sheets usually won't sustain the capital needed. And that's usually going to come in the form of, equity that they need to get. And the most likely source of that capital is really from, more often than not, is high net worth individuals. And, for many of these strategies and the things that at least we see, we're very specific on real estate related strategies, but, the institutional capital sources like pension funds and endowments and, those sorts of things, Wall Street money just it doesn't make a lot of sense, because they need to allocate tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars for it to make sense. So therefore you're in this situation where you need to go out and build and develop relationships with, end user investors, right? And so what we see in our business is sort of high fragmentation on both sides of the aisle, right? There's many, many, many deal sponsors in the country because there's real estate everywhere. And there's many, many, many investors out in the world who are looking for investment opportunities. So for me, what I've realized at, doing this for so many years here is that there's this fundamental thing that needs to happen in order for a transaction to occur, where you as the investor are going to be willing to part with your hard-earned capital. It requires you to have some level of trust. And I often tell, deal sponsors that I think you need to understand that many investors would probably leave their kids with you for an hour or two before they would, decide to put, $50,000 or $100,000 into one of your deals. It's just the bar is really, really high. And you can't lose sight of that. No matter how great you think you are, or what it is that you do, if they just met you or they don't know much about you, we've all learned that we need to be, cautious when we approach these sorts of things. So needless to say, you got a lot of sort of thrashing and things that take place, sponsors looking everywhere, trying to build these relationships, and investors, trying to figure out who's trustworthy and where are these guys at and what is the deals that are available. So from the sponsor's perspective, this is the sort of thing that I'm saying is that, well, if people are looking for you, then you need to be prepared to be found and to go through this process where you can go from meeting someone to getting them to the point where they trust you, and then to the point where they decide to transact with you. And you need to make that as smooth as possible. So having an online presence, a website, LinkedIn profiles, those sorts of things where people could find you, research you, get that kind of information, having some kind of material like a pitch deck that you can provide them that gives them an overview of your strategy and how you do what you do and how you're differentiated, having your track record available so that they can, you can share that with investors, putting together like a due diligence questionnaire that you can provide to prospective investors so that they can, have at least these high level questions answered. And then providing some investor references so they can talk to other investors who've invested, and then ultimately providing them with a secure data room so that you can go in and sort of corroborate and do your research and your diligence. Now, many people don't have, maybe they got one of these things or two of these things, right? So these are the sorts of things I'm trying to help them implement to make this process go more smoothly. This is a quote from Mark Robertson, who leads one of the largest investor groups in the country, 506 Investor Group. He made a comment, I think last year in one of his blog posts or something, investors need to verify the background and the track record. Making fewer, larger bets on established sponsors is the trend. So I share this is sort of saying, yeah, they need to verify the background and the track record, but really, it's safest to just go after the people who appear to have been in business the longest, right? And go along with, the bigger guys. So what we try to do, at Verivest is to try to, remove that barrier so that you can maybe find emerging managers or sponsors, those sorts of things, and not necessarily have to just, follow the herd all the time. So those are things we'll kind of cover today. From your perspective, right, from the investor's perspective, I think it's important to have a process as well. And I often see when I speak with investors and try to dig into what their process is, whether they realize they have one or not, I think a lot of times it becomes a bit too emotional. I mean, I think we're human beings. We make decisions emotionally. There's just really no way around that. We do business with people we like. It's all about emotion, but at the end of the day, if you can have a process, I think you can kind of eliminate some of that stuff that can lead to thinking errors. So first things first, you have to decide what your mandate is. Like, what are you looking for? And that means that you have to approach your investment portfolio. So today we're talking about the non-taxable side of your, investment portfolio. So these are your retirement funds. But presumably you have sort of other, your portfolio also has a taxable side where you're in cash or, those sorts of things that aren't being sheltered from tax. But your portfolio, whether you realize it or not, has jobs that it needs to be doing. It needs to provide income. It needs to provide, growth opportunities. It needs to be diversified. You need to have, defensive positions. There's a handful of jobs your portfolio needs to be doing. So you need to understand, given where you're at in your, in your life, whether you're nearing retirement, you're retired, or you're in your 30s and all those things, your portfolio needs different amounts of different things. So deciding what you want ahead of time, I think, is prudent. That way you can kind of narrow it down. And then from there, the ability to sort of go out and research, in this case, sponsors, right? Who are those that are offering investments that solve that particular problem for my portfolio? And this is what I share when I consult with sponsors to say, I know you love buying apartment buildings or buying notes or whatever it is that you do. I know you like that, but ultimately whatever we come up with is a net new investment product, right? It's an investment product you're putting on the shelf for people to consume. Right. So it solves a different problem for them. And you got to be cognizant of how those two sort of work together. And then from there, it's you research sponsors, you can conduct outreach, then you start asking questions, you begin to validate, these track records, conduct your reference and background checks, complete that investment due diligence, right? Because all these things are, hey, let's make sure I know who I'm dealing with first. Are they capable of executing the strategy they've said? And then you can get in and start looking at the individual deal, whether it's a fund, a syndication, it's a turnkey product, whatever it is. Then and only then, if you're not the one running it, which in the case of an IRA, oftentimes you're not, because that's there's rules around those sorts of things. Then you complete your due diligence, and then maybe you make the investment, right? So that's when it's a go, no go, not just, wow, that's a pretty pitch deck. These guys seem like they're all together. Everyone else is investing them, therefore I should. That's a strategy, just not a good strategy. And for me, as I said before, I think that what I really believe in this sort of dance is that trust is the actual transaction, right? So understanding that if you as an investor aren't comfortable, like you don't feel good about it, you don't feel like you've reached that point where you trust them, I think that it's just better to walk away. And then fundamentally, if sponsors, I think, put more credence into the fact that they need to establish this trust, before proceeding, I think it would change the way many of them sort of approach the market. Because of this guy is a great example. I think investors by and large just really aren't sure and certain who they should trust. And in these days more than ever, I think unfortunately, right, we don't know what to believe with social media and news the way it is. It's just like, I can't make heads or tails of what's real anymore. Maybe it's always been that way, but it just sure feels like it's sort of, much more so. And what I'm not saying is that sponsors aren't trustworthy. I think that for the most part, they are, right? People are. So I'm not saying they're not, but I just think that it's just appreciating that developing trust, which is a relationship, it just takes a long time. And I think one of the big things with some of these investments, right, private placements in particular, is just that they're very opaque. In the private markets, they're opaque. You don't necessarily know what you're getting, or you just don't have the kind of visibility or transparency into these things. So for me, this is sort of my passion in life, right, is to usher in this age of transparency. The only way to combat some of this fear and uncertainty and just the way that we feel is just to be more transparent, right? And because I believe that this market, the more that we can create access for people like yourselves to invest in these things, it can really change, your livelihood and the freedom that you can have and the way that you live your life and the way that the generations after you can live the life. It's giving access to what I'd call more of the not the 1%ers, but the people, the rest of the world, right? The rest of us can gain access to some of these investments that just were never accessible, before 10, 20, 30 years ago. And you're seeing it all over the news, right? It's in every trade rag or whatever. It's just everyone's talking about, transparency. We got to make things more transparent. So for me, this is where it's, well, how do we do this? How do we implement more transparency, and how do we, what if we could shortcut this time to develop this trust, right? Once again, I'm not a shortcut guy, but there's got to be a way to cut out some of that noise, right? The things that dance, that goes back and forth, just the inefficiencies of the process. And I call it the new game, right? That's the new way that we can do this, right? And so this is where, for me as an entrepreneur, looking at sort of, once again, panning out and saying, how should it work? Like the list of things I said that investors should be doing when they're approaching something like this is that first things first, we need a place to go to find them, right? Because hunting all over, the internet and trying to, find different sponsors or whatever it's just a big waste of time. So having a single place you can go to find them, and then being able to know that, these people that are involved, have background checks and it's already been done for me and I don't have to kind of go through all of that, right? And then being able to have that track record verified by somebody independently, using a third-party provider to monitor and provide oversight of these investments, on an ongoing basis. And then having, quarterly reporting becoming more of a table stake, not sort of a differentiator. Because having to wait a whole year to find out, how an investment turned out just seems, kind of odd to me. And then in holding and having the participants, hold themselves to a higher standard via some kind of code of conduct. To me, this is sort of that transparent real estate investing. And I look at it like this. It's just, Craigslist is great. But I'm terrified buying things on Craigslist. You never know what you're going to get, right? And I feel like that's kind of how it feels sometimes when you invest in these deals. You just do a lot of praying, you're crossing your fingers, and you're just hoping that it turns out, and that's not good. Whereas, transacting on eBay, if I go and buy the same exact laptop for $1 less from this guy on the right who sold, he's had 2,204 positive reviews and 3 people were sort of neutral, not to mention just backed by the eBay name. I feel a lot better about this, right? Whereas I could get mugged in the one on the left going to pick up this laptop at some random coffee shop. So for me, and for you guys as investors, I just feel like having this new game, this new way of doing it provides, greater confidence to freely invest, which means that it opens the door for more people to participate and to do so with greater peace of mind. Right. And I think for sponsors, if any of you are kind of deal sponsors yourself, it's a heck of a lot easier for people to discover you rather than you having to chase after them. And then you can, I think the other benefit then is that the conversations become centered around the merits of an investment on its own face, because I think that a lot of times in my own experience doing this for as long as I've done it now, there's just not enough time is spent on talking about the deal or the investment. So I think this helps that as well. And it allows them to, grow their investor base faster. Once again, just like Nicole was mentioning with the networking events and those things, the beauty of the internet now is that we can meet people like ourselves all over the world in the country. It's just amazing. We've got team for we've got a developer in Italy, and we've got resources in the Philippines, and we got people in like 6 different states. I mean, it's amazing. The world is flat. And I think from the sponsor's perspective, it allows them to spend more time focused on what they do best, which is their deals. So, but much of what I've said really can't happen unless you have some sort of neutral, independent third party. And that's sort of what, for us, we call it the sponsor network. So for the sake of today, just kind of going into, so how do we take what I think the approach should be for you guys as investors looking for, opportunities, how do we sort of solve some of these issues, right? That's at the heart of it, because one, it's determining the mandate that you have, figuring that out, what you're looking for, and then, how do you research those sponsors? So what we've done is created a way for you to go to, our website just to search. And this is all free. Once again, I'm not selling you anything. This is a tool for the investor side of the equation. In our case, as I said, we're back office administrators. So we feel like we're Switzerland in this ecosystem. And we're trying to encourage sponsors to follow suit with these things that I'm sharing with you, right? So they're ostensibly, they foot the bill, but it's all voluntary, right? I'm not trying to twist anyone's arm into doing these things. I'm looking for people that are deal sponsors who believe everything I just said. They have nothing to hide. They want to be validated. They want to have their things verified. But this allows you to go to, our website, and you can basically filter then by that mandate that you had, whether you're looking for private lenders or trust deeds or 1031 exchange or whatever it is that you're looking for. You can go and sort of narrow it down and then begin your research. So you can go to verivest.com, and I do have a free ebook, The Definitive Guide to Real Estate Investing for Passive Investors. You can download it. So much of what I'm talking about is in that guide. I've got 3 different checklists, one for sponsor due diligence, one for investment due diligence, and one for ongoing monitoring. And then the track record validation. I think that this is a big one. Most sponsors, when you speak with them, they want to tell you all these great things they've done, which I don't blame them. We all want to make the claims, especially when we've accomplished great things. We want to talk about those things, but corroborating that as an investor, even if you have a whole team of people, can be very, very difficult. So what we've done is we basically offer the service now where they can come to us, provide us with that track record. We will then collect all of the relevant information, closing statements and all the documentation that surrounds these transactions. And we will actually go out and use, the public record or call the escrow agents or whoever the people that were involved to basically verify and validate that these transactions occurred and that the people, the sponsors involved actually had control of those investments. So then you can go to their profile and see, hey, this Meadowbrook Apartments deal that they're claiming they did, actually did happen. And then we actually can validate and verify the performance metrics as well. So a lot of people lean on those things. Like I said, if you've been delivering, gross 30% IRR returns, you certainly are going to want to talk about it. But you never know if it's really believable or not. And then I think conducting the reference and the background checks, right? When you're dealing with the sponsor, the background check is the one that comes up and has seemed to come up for a really long time. People just want to make sure they're not, dealing with crooks and criminals and, charlatans and fraudsters and those sorts of things. Completely understandable. But it's paramount that you do these things. And so for us, what we've done is we'll run those background checks up front is really that's sort of the gating factor. To be invited to be a member of our network, you have to, the principals of the firm, those who are, involved in the day-to-day, have to take and pass a background check. And if they do, then the results of that background check will be visible publicly on their profile. So, for some people, they may have had, a few little things where they've been sued or something. They just can't get comfortable sharing that stuff publicly. Then for us, it's like, then you can't participate, right? Like that's part of being transparent, is not hiding from, whatever has happened, right? Because in this business, in real estate business, tenants are going to sue you, deals are, it's going to happen. Like if you've been in business any amount of time, you've been, those things happen. I think that most rational people realize that those things happen, but making them available and not hiding from them or trying to cover them up, I think is important. And then I guess going back a step too, I think one of the things for investors that I think gets overlooked at times is just, and I cover it in the ebook, but is just the reference checks, right? With asking a sponsor to provide you with a list of 3 or 5, preferably 5 sort of other investors, and then actually reaching out and having a conversation with them is really, really, really important. And the things that you want to, center on in that call is just, the big one is just, if you had money available and it met, and the deal that was being provided met your sort of investment mandate, would you invest again? Right, is really the money question. And I think that getting them to, phrasing it that way to see how they're going to respond to that is going to be very telling. And I think that a lot of people, the reason they end up not doing reference checks is because they think that the references that are being provided to them are just going to say all the wonderful things in the world, like these are their best investors and, sort of a waste of time. But what I found in doing them is that I ask for the best investors, references they have. And then I end up calling these investors and they end up spending most of the time sort of lamenting and complaining about how, they wish the communication was better. And because when you think about it, you're calling that person and sort of saying, hey, I'm thinking about investing in ABC sponsor. And, for them, it's their own reputation. They don't want to be the guy that basically says, oh yeah, they're the greatest thing since sliced bread. And it's amazing, whatever, because then if it goes sideways, they don't want to receive another phone call from you, a year or two later saying, you said this guy was amazing and here he turned out to be a bum, right? Like, so I think you get really, really good insight and information, especially if you make 5 of those phone calls. You're going to pick up the patterns, and then you get to decide whether or not, whatever the things, the negatives, do the negatives outweigh the positives? And for you in particular, is it acceptable? It's a good way for you to sort of project yourself into as though you'd made the investment without necessarily having to make it. And then the last piece, of course, is, completing that investment due diligence. So for us at Verivest, right, like that's the big thing. It's very important, much like Quest Trust, right? Like we don't pass judgment on deals. Like I don't know if it's a good investment or not, right? I can't tell you that, and I won't tell you that. Why? Because I haven't completed the due diligence myself. And even if I had, it wouldn't matter, because it might be a good investment for me, but it might not be a good investment for you. Right. So those are important things. And then when it comes down to risk tolerance as well, it's just, we all have a different tolerance for risk. So, I've got a podcast that I do called the Real Estate Risk Report, 3 episodes a week. And this is all I talk about, is just talking about, like, you have to own this. You doing due diligence, learning how these things work before you make investments is paramount. It's like Warren Buffett said, like, he only invests in things he understands. I think a lot of people took that to mean that he was anti-technology or something, when he really just meant, like, I don't get it. I don't understand technology yet. It doesn't mean I'm not ever going to invest in something technology related. It just means he's not comfortable. He understands railroads and banks and, other sorts of things. That's fine. It's the same with you. Don't invest in something that doesn't make sense. There's certain investments are just more complicated than others. I mean, office buildings are more complicated than multifamily or apartment buildings. It's just the way it works is different. So you got to learn how to do that and educate yourself. Hence, all of you here on a Saturday, you pretty much are already demonstrating that you're the type that, believe in education. So this is just an example of that checklist, like the investment checklist. So this is just sort of the thing that allows you to stay on track, right? As you're actually digging into the offering materials and those sorts of things. Just in the book sort of guides you through what to look at for each of these things, but just making sure that you're making notes and being more methodical, in your approach. And then, you do all these things. I really believe that you then can, when you make that investment, you can make it with conviction. You're not wringing your hands and losing sleep at night. And I mean, that's my big thing, is I just hear that over and over and over again, where people, investors that have invested in our clients' deals, they just, like, they're just they say things like, man, I just, everything's going well. I'm just afraid I'm investing in a Ponzi scheme. And I'm going, well, that's why we exist. We're the administrator. Like, we're making sure that all this stuff is legitimate. And, we certainly aren't going to put our name on it if it's not real. And for me, this just goes back to, like, TSA pre-check. I mean, I can't even imagine going back to the line anymore. Right. So this is sort of, for me as an entrepreneur myself, I'm trying to create an experience where we remove some of this friction, and it's just something, why would we ever go back? It's like, Carfax, buying a used car before Carfax was terrifying. And that's why people, more often bought, new cars. It's just, the risk was too high. You didn't know what you're getting. And here's the guide that I referred to. Once again, Verivest.com. It's at the very bottom. You can just punch in your email address and download that. So that is the gist of the presentation. So I'm not sure if we've got questions here or not, but.
We sure do, Lance. Thanks so much for that great information. That was really amazing. It sounds like you have a really great service there. We do have questions about it if you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. So the first question we have is, so those sponsors are paying to advertise, to speak, to be on Verivest. Verivest. Does all the sponsors, I'm sorry, let me read that again. All the sponsors are paying to advertise and to speak to be on Verivest. And then Verivest does all the sponsor investigation. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we've structured it as a membership program. So
okay.
The sponsor, basically, to apply, they have to pass a background check, and then they pay. Currently, the membership fee is very low. It's $65 a month. So it's basically, no matter how big you are, how small you are, it's $65 a month. And then it's up to them whether they want to engage us to verify their track record. If we do, then it will be present on their profile. Right. So, and then every investment deal that they have, opportunity that they have available, they can decide to engage us to monitor it on an ongoing basis. Right. Awesome. So what we're trying to do is to incentivize them to, if they have $100 million of investor capital under management, then we're basically saying, well, if you engage us to monitor all $100 million worth of those opportunities, then you attain Verivest Gold status. And when someone does research, is filtering, you'll rank higher than other people. So rather than allowing them to pay to play, like we just say, no, the behavior we want is that we feel better giving you higher placement if you are more committed to being transparent than the next guy. Right. So it's like, so that's what, for us, it's like, you got to do your own homework, but I'm going to help you discover those who are making an outward sort of, they're outwardly demonstrating that they're committed to what we're talking about.
Sure. That's awesome. And I guess the next part of this question is, Do you have lawyers or independent resources for verifying a particular deal? I'm guessing not, since these are kind of like invest it in your own risk. We're just kind of providing the service of companies wanting to be transparent.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think that this is one of my sort of pet peeves, is that this notion of engaging an attorney to vet some investment opportunity as though like that's, I just feel like I'm not quite sure I see that. Once again, going back to what I just said, right, as I'm saying that, well, first of all, it starts with, what do you need? What kind of investment are you looking for? So it's more of what you need as an investment advisor. If you need someone to help you vet a deal to say, does it fit with what I'm looking for in my portfolio? Some random attorney, I mean, God bless them. I know there's guys out there who woke up this morning that offer that as a service. And I can see that there is some merit to it, because some of these agreements can be pretty complicated, right? Like, but once again, even when they complete whatever their analysis is, it's still, the scope was limited. It was limited to, I don't think that their clauses weren't unreasonable, their leverage ratios weren't high enough. That's important stuff, right? But I also think like those are the very things that you as an investor could learn on your own. So I'm not saying don't do it, but I still wouldn't be like, oh, that attorney said it was great, so therefore I should put money into it. It's like, not so much. So
Sure.
in terms of us and verifying information, right? I mean, a particular deal, what I think is the biggest risk in these deals is when you're a limited partner, you put money into the deal, it's what happens after the investment's made. No one's paying attention to what these guys are doing. And even auditors, they show up in February or March, and there's just a race to like cram this down. And they're more interested in, are these financials comply with GAAP, than they are like, hey, are all these assets legitimate and real and whatever? And so I feel like there's just holes in it. I think that for most deals, the greatest likelihood of you losing money is because the deal sponsor decides to misappropriate your funds after the investment's been made. That's where the biggest risk is. So.
Perfect. Awesome. A couple more. Do investors have to be a member of Verivest to work with sponsors on your website?
No. So it's free for investors. So you can do a lot on our website without even giving us your information, right? So if you register as a user, once again, free, dead simple, takes 20 seconds, that allows you to like save certain sponsors. It allows you to click the connect button. It allows you to download documents that might be on an opportunity. You get more functionality if you register. And I, of course, would encourage you all to register. But yeah, it's once again, in spirit of transparency, like we're like letting anybody can go there. I mean, even a non-accredited investor could go to the site. For us, I don't want to like put up a gate. If you're non-accredited and you look at a deal and it turns out you have to be accredited, it's the sponsor's responsibility to say, well, sorry, you don't qualify. So
sure. I have a question about, I guess, private money lending in between the borrower and the lender, where it's not necessarily a company that you're dealing with, but just kind of person to person. Do you have any words on that and kind of that vetting process between the two people?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'd encourage you to download the ebook, because like I do kind of explain like, here's what you could do on your own. So like in this case, let's say you're the lender and you're trying to vet this borrower, right? Because you're ultimately saying, do I want to make this loan or not? And it starts with, well, the borrower, I'm borrowing the money to do something, execute their own strategy to turn around this property or whatever, right? Well, first thing you're probably thinking is this guy a good guy, or is this gal a good gal? Right? Are they good people? I don't know yet, right? But that's the first thing on our minds.
I see that Lance is frozen.
Hello.
Juan, is he frozen for you? Oh, there we go.
Are we good?
Yep, we're good now. I'm sorry, your answer was frozen.
Yeah. So
okay.
the response was, I mean, I do, like in the ebook, I think that it's a similar process of everything we just said, right? Is that, researching them, getting a background check ran on them. I mean, certainly you could, in this case, I as a lender would probably do that. And there's some low cost background checks that maybe aren't as like in depth as the ones that we run on our members, but you could do that. And I would encourage people to do that. So and if this person happens to be someone who is in the business very actively, right, then if I'm in their position, I'd say, well, it seems to me that you're trying to borrow money from a bunch of different people and you're executing the strategy. why don't you become a member of the Verivest sponsor network? Because, it seems like it'd be accretive to you. You'd find more potential ways to, more investors and whatever. And hey, it'd make me feel better knowing that, the background check was run and, you're sort of committed to a higher standard by signing the code of conduct.
Perfect. And then I think you already answered this one. It sounds like Verivest does all the background check for it. It says do investors need to do the background check or the sponsors on Verivest, or does Verivest provide that? It sounds like Verivest provides that service.
Yeah, we do that. That's sort of that's step one. So when someone comes to us like, hey, I'd love to list, I want to be on the directory, then it's like, okay, well, pay the application fee. We'll run the background checks. And then we update them annually. So we rerun them once a year. And then, so yeah, we do that. So as an investor, like if I was an investor and someone showed up, with some sort of, hey, I got this multifamily syndication, I'd basically say, great, well, go to Verivest and become a member and get the background checks and have them verify your track record, then come back to me and maybe I'll be interested once you've proven that you could do that. Like, that's what I hope more people start doing, is just saying, I just met you. I'm sure it's a great deal, but my process is I got to get comfortable with the sponsor first. And you can demonstrate to me that you're legitimate by taking this first step.
Sure. I think all your information is really amazing. All the transparency, the service that's really set up. I think it's really amazing. We have a lot of people asking for your contact information. Again, do you mind putting that slide back up, or either putting it in the chat box so everyone can get it one more time?
Yeah. So there it is. Yeah. So yeah,
Thanks so much.
Feel free, shoot me an email, lance@verivest.com. I love talking with, end user investors, always open to more feedback, just more color, the better on, what you wish you had. This is kind of how we started out anyway, right? Is that I started to ask that magic wand question. Hey, if you had a magic wand.
Again for me, for some reason, I hope it's not freezing up for everybody. Just me again.
Are you there?
Yep, I'm there. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. So anyway, love to hear from you. Feel free to reach out. Always happy to answer questions or provide more color. And yeah, I think check out the podcast too. So I've done it. Really the real estate risk report is for, I call it, I'm trying to help investors go from ignorant to enlightened. So
I love that.
It's the other piece of it where I'm trying to help make people better investors, right? Just how to think like an investor, become better at it. It's a skill. So that's what we spend a lot of time talking about.
I really love that perspective, that it's a skill, that education, and really feeling more confident in your investment, I think is really important. And that sleep factor is kind of what I've kind of called it, like, can you sleep at night if you're doing this deal? If not, maybe it's not the right one for you. So I've really appreciated all the information you've shared today. I think it's extremely valuable. I really appreciate you being here. What would be just maybe like your, I don't know, like one best tip, one bit of advice that you would give everyone here?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of something we didn't cover. I
know you've covered so much.
Yeah,
I just didn't know there'd be like your one golden nugget, your golden tip.
Yeah, my golden my golden nugget really is just it's try to adopt a process, right? And then I also think too, the other thing is just, see, because I think some people misinterpret what I'm doing. Like they think that, well, you must be very investor centric. Like I'm here to like beat up the other side. It's like, I'm not. I also think the investors, you need to be reasonable, right? And so making all these demands and acting like you're a big shot and I got this money and you need to do whatever I say, like it's a relationship, right? Like, I think that's what I'm trying to say is that when I say shortcut the time to trust, I'm just trying to say shortcut the time to where you can have a meaningful, substantive relationship. Right? Because that is what's happening. And if that doesn't exist, this notion of you sit on a couch and just push buttons and, invest in things randomly, like on Robinhood or something, that's not this. Okay. Like make no mistake about it. That's not what we're talking about. Right. So just, you got to think that way. Like you're becoming a partner with these people, albeit you might be a limited partner or whatever. you want to pick people that you enjoy. You want to create win-win-win situations with. So that's my advice. And
That's a really amazing perspective. And I really like the point that you made that, like, just because you're the lender with the money, that it's like all the control is on your side. Yeah, you're the one with the money, but you're not, maybe the deals that you're getting or what have you with the borrower, that might not make the best relationship. Kind of acting with that kind of mindset. Again, it was truly a pleasure to have you today. I can't thank you enough for coming. The information that you shared was really, really amazingly valuable. It was really great to have you. So thank you so much for being here with us. Let's see if we have any more questions. Just a lot of comments that it was a really great show. Great info. Thanks, Lance. So great information. Thanks again for being here. We really appreciate it. Thanks again for putting up your information there. I think that everyone has probably had a chance to get it. If not, we are going to have this webinar on our YouTube channel. So everybody will get to have the chance to play the webinar again and get everybody's contact information. So thank you, everybody, for joining Quest Trust Company and Lance Pederson today for Self-Directed Saturday. We will see you again next Saturday at 12 Central with another guest speaker and more information. Make sure you check out QuestCon Live, and everybody have a wonderful Saturday and a great weekend. So thanks again, everybody, and we'll see you next Saturday.
Thanks, Nicole. Take care.
Thank you so much, Lance. It was really a pleasure to have you this week. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right. Have a great weekend, everyone.